The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by PGC. PGC are the longest serving employer of record in North America and can compliantly engage contractors across both the US and Canada on behalf of staffing and recruitment businesses. Our turnkey solution offers a unique access point to the largest staffing market in the world. To find out more, visit us at pgcgroup.com.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliot Manning, the Managing Director of Cayman Recruitment Group. This week's episode is a special one. I've got a fantastic guest who I've invited on the podcast. Something very different for you guys and girls to listen to. Obviously, this whole series has been about the United States and how to expand your business. Talking to lots of business owners around how they've found challenges and their journey going over to the US. But wanted to come away from that for a minute and have a break. So I will let the guests introduce themselves.
How you doing? So my name is Brad Burton. I'm a motivational leader. Elliot just mentioned then about expanding your business. Well, I'll tell you something. What I do is I help people expand their mindset. Over in the UK, I've been a motivational speaker, speak at the highest level, whether it's Bentley, JCB, Costa, Zero. Speak at the highest level, and I provide leadership support to organizations, including yours.
Fantastic. So look, Brad, I've got a nice, and I just thought of it just now, actually, a very nice spin on this, because I've worked with you for a long time now, been fantastic to help me on coaching, working with my team in the business. I run a business where I have got to deal with US time zone, a team in the US, South Africa, as well as the UK. And it does become very challenging at times. It does mess with your head. It does cause you a lot of different challenges and dilemmas. So working with lots of businesses on your side, have you come across this before? Let's talk about, I suppose, Brad, your experience with dealing with leaders that spin many plates, I suppose.
Well, listen, I think all the best leaders do, but I think the best of best leaders, they recognize there's a time, there's a place to push. One of the things that I always focus on is about energy. If I look at my mobile phone right now, I'm on 72% as a battery. What battery are you on, Elliot?
I'm currently on 40%.
40%. If I asked you,
Elliot,
if I asked you if you had an LED on your brain and I could see, what would your overall battery would be at in business just for the last week, let's say, percentile?
Last week, I'd say drive and energy wise about 80-90%. Right now, at the end of this day, probably 30-40%.
Right, and that's what we need to understand, because energy is a massive impact on your performance. When you've got a top biller, they'll have top energy. When you've got the best of billers with low energy, it's going to be the worst of billers. And I think that we've been coming at it from the wrong perspective. And that's what I look at when I go into any kind of business, recruitment or otherwise, is I look at the individuals and say, right, what do we need to do to get the energy up? Once the energy's up, then we start dealing with the sales problems. And it's counterintuitive to the conventional way that people would fix a team. However, I've got a track record, I'm proven track record of it working. So it's a different way to do things. And everything I've ever done has been different, whether it was I've written 4 books, whether my approach to motivational speaking, whether my approach to running a business. It's always been different, but not different for the sake of being different, but different because different works. And I think that right now, if you want to stand out in your field, you have to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you come across I suppose, specific instances, scenarios, challenges or circumstances that recruitment or business owners in general face when managing, international offices, big teams, and, feel that they're responsible for a lot?
Yeah, things change. Things are always in flux. And, you could have the best team today, the worst team tomorrow. Worst team today, best team tomorrow. And I think you need to move with that flex. It's almost, you've got to be like a surfer and kind of ride the wave. I reckon from a leadership perspective, it is about self-leadership. What we need to do is get your teams managing themselves. Ask yourself this question. If your boss was alongside you right now, what would you be doing? Why aren't you doing that? And that's what you need to do. You need to be a self-led individual. So when I look at teams and I look at teams globally, one of the things that I do, 1, get the energy up, 2, get this self-leadership thing. What would you do if your boss was sat next to you? They're not sat next to you, so but why aren't you doing that? And once you start isolating those 2 things, life becomes a whole lot easier for everyone, because you shouldn't have to lean on someone to get performance. And I think when you're doing that, it kind of catches up with you. One of the things that I do and exercise it, and for your listeners right now, if you used to go and get a piece of paper, A4, and on the left, you used to write the word gnome, and on the right, a gladiator. We kind of know what a gladiator is, Russell Crowe with a sword, and you know what a gladiator stands for. They will die for you, they'll make things happen. Then on the other side, you have the gnomes. The gnomes just kind of wait there, waiting for fish to jump on the rod. Look at your teams. Look at your teams and say, how many are on the gnome side? How many are on the gladiator side? What have we, us, got to do to get the gnomes to gladiators and keep the gladiators exactly where they are?
Is there any advice that you got for, look, there's a lot of problems in the industry. Let's talk about recruitment specifically. There's a lot of trust issues, right? You know, there's so many trust issues. It's crazy. And a lot of the economy has been built on globalization, remote working, and it's all changed since 2020. And recruitment businesses, you know, have held back on their expansions generally as companies because they don't trust people. What do you, what can you advise or suggest when it comes to that?
If you've not got trust, you've got no business, right?
Yeah.
In today's business is a trust economy. You know, that's what we rely on when you look at a social media account. If they've got lots of followers, technically speaking, you're more inclined to trust them. By the way, you do exceptional on the old social media, I've got to say. You're head and shoulders, but that's a completely different conversation. But the point is, trust is massive. If you've not got trust, you don't have a business. So the question is how do we get trust? And that's what I would say. Ask that question. Simple as that. Blank piece of paper. How do we build trust? How do we build trust with our teams? How do we build trust with our customers? How do we build trust with ourselves? And they're simple questions, not simple answers.
Yeah. So I met you and saw you at the Recruitment Network did a huge event, and you was motivational speaker there. And, you know, that was many, many years back. You know, you had the whole room's attention at the time. So one question I've got for you for recruitment business owners in this instance and recruitment teams in general, what do you do to work with teams and businesses that have remote setups and teams in different locations? Because I feel like that, you know, there's a missing, there's something missing with a lot of businesses, and they don't utilize motivational speaking, leadership, coaching, support because they're not all in one office.
No, well, listen, I think culture is the glue that holds a team together.
Yeah.
Culture is a glue that holds a team together. If you do not have culture, your team doesn't stay together. They don't work together. So what I do is I do what I call online team maker calls, which allow me to kind of get a team fired up and focused, but not only fired up and focused, all working literally and figuratively on the same page, because I think that that's the bit that's missing right now. With the, you know, it's wonderful working from home, lovely, but you do lose that human connection. So that's what we do. We kind of get the human connection back and we rebuild that culture. And we rebuild the culture by having honest and straight conversations that most people don't want to have. And in not having them, that's where the problems are formed. And by having them, that's where the problems are fixed. It's a simple conversation. And listen, every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. I would, of course, welcome any little conversations.
Yeah, I love what you do in terms of, you know, where you work with my teams, you know, you get them to, it's all target driven in a sense where you want them to not just target themselves with work and, you know, all the KPI stuff that they have to deal with on a day to day, but you know, it's the overall target. You know, what do you want to achieve? Okay, that's fantastic. How are you going to achieve it? And then how are you going to achieve that to then achieve that to get there?
Correct.
Breaking it down.
And I think, you know, once again, it's this, companies have their own KPIs, companies have their own targets, but what I think where you're going to get the best from your team is by working out what their personal goals are. Yeah. So, you know, money is a big enough motivator, but it's an even bigger motivator when you've got a target that in the event that I hit target this month, I become top biller, then guess what? I'm going to take my kids to Disney World, right? Yeah. That's an even bigger driving force because, you know, as human beings, we can switch off, we can get lazy. Look, I'm a motivational speaker. The first person I had to motivate was me, right? Yeah. So I get it as a human being, and we're not robots. And I think once you start realizing that, if you really want to get the best out of people, then you need them to get the best out of themselves. And that's what self-leadership's about. And it's something, the principle that I do in my complete leader maker accelerated growth program. But that's what I do. Bring out the best in individuals. You bring out the best in individuals, you bring out the best in a team. Once you bring out the best in a team, you bring out the best in the sales, and it's cyclic. It's all connected. And I think that that's the bit. So if a member of your team is down, the entire team's down. So is it possible to get a team fully working, all fired up, all focused and moving in the same direction? 100% correct. Which I've got to say, what you do over at Cayman, you seem to be as near as damn it to that point.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. And that comes off of a lot of the stuff that you and I have done together as well over the months at the same time. You do something else, which I think is critical, especially for the recruitment industry around decision making, which is the 24, 24,
Yeah,
24. Can we
yeah.
talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. Let me give you this, people. This will change your world. And I mean that sincerely, like genuinely, this will change your world. When it comes to making decisions in life and in business, the reason we don't make decisions is we're kind of scared they're the wrong ones. Okay. Now, if I could give you a foolproof method that meant that every single decision that you made would be the correct one, would you make more decisions? Yes or no?
Yes.
Of course. There's no such thing, it doesn't exist. But what there is I've recognized something that an expert is someone that has made all the mistakes in a particular niche field. So let's say, for instance, when you first started Cayman, it must have taken you time to do particular things. And right now you can do it in 10 minutes because expertise has kind of shortened the time needed. So when it comes to making decisions, I will make a decision in 24 seconds. If I can't make a decision in 24 seconds, I will revisit it in 24 minutes. If after 24 minutes I can't make a decision, I revisit it in 24 hours. If after 24 hours I can't make a decision, I've just made a decision, it's not important, next. And I'll tell you the reason why. When it comes to making decisions, I ask this question: what's the best case? What's the worst case? What's the most likely case of making this decision?
Yeah.
If I can live with the worst case of any decision, I go for it. If I can't, I don't. And I'm telling you something, the whole principle that I've got with this is about better decisions faster. Once you start realizing this, that this is how you get high performing teams, because that ability to be assertive in your decision making, and it starts bleeding throughout the entire company.
I mean, yeah, I pretty much use that every day.
That's
What's
it.
the best case, worst case, like all of those situational kind of thinking is something that allows me to make the right decisions. Whereas, look, this year's been a rough year for the industry. The last year's
Right.
been rough for the industry. Everyone in the economy in general has kind of found it quite rough. But if I talk about, again, recruitment industry in specific, the this space has had a lot of lows, and some of them have had some good ups. But I suppose working with someone like yourself and
Yeah.
being able to dig yourself out of that hole, make the right decisions, is going to be essential for the business moving forward. And there's a lot of business owners that are unfortunately making the wrong decisions at the moment that I see, and have not gone forwards, they've gone backwards, they kind of found themselves in a rut, they don't know how to get themselves forward.
Right.
Surely you've been working with a lot of these kind of companies in general anyway.
I would say this: a positive mindset won't solve all your problems, but a negative one will give you more. And if you start looking at yourself right now as an individual who's listening to this, and I want you to be really honest with yourself and say, on a scale of 1% to 100%, where is your energy right now? And if your energy is sub 50%, you're in trouble. And because what happens is when you're low energy, you start thinking negatively. And when you start thinking negatively, you start getting less decisive. You start being slower at making decisions. Then you start losing your edge and so forth. And you will look at your top billers. You look at your top billers. They are decisive. They are assertive. They are confident. And they have they're easy for me to say. They have high energy. High energy. There you go. That was what I was going to say. And that's the bit that you need to focus on. So when you start doing that, then you start improving all these little things within you, then your results are better.
Absolutely.
Simple.
So look, I want to keep it short and sweet, because if I can sit here just getting everything out of you and then giving all your secrets. For those that are interested in reaching out to you, where can they find you, Brad? What else do you do as opposed to motivational speaking and leadership courses? Is there anything else that we're missing?
Absolutely. So first things first, Google me, Brad Burton, or go to my website, motivationalleader.co.uk. I do one-to-one mentoring, I do Zoom sessions, I do leader sessions, bringing teams together, kick-off days, and of course, what else do I do? Oh yeah, motivational speaking. But in the round, look, if it's about improving energy, if it's about improving sales, if it's about improving your team, guess what? I'm your man, Brad Burton, or motivationalleader.co.uk.
Absolutely. Look, guys and girls, we're going to put his links on the social that goes out there on the podcast and all other channels that you'll see the the video clips or anything audio, so you can reach out to Brad directly. Check out everything that he's done. There's loads of stuff on his LinkedIn, so definitely follow him as well, because you'll get a good understanding of what he's about. I can vouch for him because I've worked with him for a long time. I know many people that do work with him, have worked with him and are going to work with him as well, based on his success rate and what he does and what he can do. Brad, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast, mate. I'd love to